let's finally talk about custom modes. Okay, so we've looked at agent mode, which is really kind of the core agentic coding experience of Cursor, right? We've looked at ask mode, which is kind of Cursor's default experience for asking questions from the AI when you don't want it to actually go edit your code. But what if you want a custom mode? What if you want it to do a very specific set of things? You want to configure the model with a prompt, with a few tools it has access to, a few tools it doesn't have access to. How do you do that? So recently, Cursor in 0.48 has added the ability to add custom modes. So you're going to want to make sure that in your settings, you have this enabled, which we showed you how to do in the settings video. And then you're going to want to go to the mode picker here, and you're going to want to add a custom mode. So one of the things that we could do is, let's say we wanted like plan mode. Okay, maybe we want the AI to, before we actually pass our request to Cursor's agent mode to actually write the code, maybe we want it to actually just generate us a plan. So how would I do that with a custom mode, right? This is the example that we're going to kind of anchor on here. So we're going to pick a name for it, and then we get access to a bunch of different settings. It looks like maybe we have to do, this is a very new feature in Cursor, so there's a possibility that this UI will change a little bit. Hopefully it'll make it better and less buggy. But if we did done here, one of the things that you would see is, okay, plan mode is now activated, and it looks like plan mode is now in our select in our menu here. Again, we can click that pencil to name it or to edit it. You can see we have icons to pick for, so maybe we want to use, is there like, if I search edit, okay, there's a pencil, so maybe we'll use the pencil for the icon for plan mode, which again, if we go back to down here, it looks like Cursor actually has a default plan mode, which is interesting. I'm going to call this McKay. We're going to call this McKay Planner instead. I'm going to hit done. You can see McKay Planner is now activated. Okay, that's great. So you can even set a custom key binding. So one thing to note with the custom key binds is you do want to be careful that you're not overriding existing key binds that maybe you use a lot, which sometimes I've been guilty of doing. So just one quick note on the key binding before you do that, just be aware of that. But one of the things that you can do is you can decide what tools does your specific mode have access to. So a lot of different things here. Let's kind of go one by one. So we have search tools, we have edit tools, we have run tools, we have MCP tools. So you've already seen search, edit, and run in the previous videos for this section, right? Search mode, you've seen it a couple times. Let's actually go back and look at this. So I take the storefront design. At the very start of my request here, you'll see the AI did searched code base with some specific text here, and it basically tried to pull in relevant files based on that search. So that's what the search tools are doing. Okay, so we actually, let's just go to new chat here, just to be really precise here. We go back to McKay Planner mode here and edit this, right? So if I click into search, one of the things you'll see is we have a very granular ability to include what kind of searches we want. So you can kind of uncheck these depending on what you want. In this case, I want to enable everything besides web search. I actually don't want web search on my planner. I just want it to plan based on the current code it has access to. So we'll disable web search. Okay, that makes sense. Let's go to edit. So we can expand edit. You can see the ability to delete files and edit and reapply. Okay, so we've at this point seen the agent's ability to kind of go and edit multiple files. In the case of a planner, we probably don't want it to edit any of our files, so it's actually going to behave a little bit like ask mode. So in this case, we would just disable all edits. So now we know this mode is never going to overwrite any existing code, delete any code. We can feel very safe and comfortable knowing that plan mode is just going to go ahead and plan by reading files, not editing files. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. What about run? So one of the things that you saw with the run command, right, when we had to actually install that Framer Motion library in one of those previous lessons, this is where that run thing was, where we clicked the run command. In this case, we actually don't want to be able to run any commands because we're just going to be reading our code. So I could disable this, right? And then MCP, again, we do have our MCP course on Takeoff, so I don't want to go too deep on MCP, but you can enable or disable MCP, and you can even enable or disable MCP depending on the specific servers. So I don't really want it to have access to MCP right here, but maybe I have an MCP server. Actually, let's do this, right? So let's say I actually did want my linear server to be enabled here. Maybe what I do for my planning mode here is I actually tag some sort of a linear issue, or maybe I allude to it in here, and maybe the agent is smart enough to say, oh, okay, McKay is referencing his linear tickets inside of his project management software that he likes to use. I need to go look at that ticket to actually figure out what the plan is for the task that we're about to do. So maybe that's the case where I would want to keep that one enabled. which is kind of cool. Okay, so we can search and then it can use my linear MCP server. Then if we click down to advanced options, you're going to see a few different things, which is auto apply edits, which we're going to disable, which is kind of already inherently disabled because edit mode is disabled. Auto run, which again, that's another one that's kind of nonsensical to have here because run is disabled. And then auto fix errors, which again, we're not writing any code here, so we're just going to leave that off, right? All of these are kind of based on edit based commands, which we don't have enabled in our specific mode here. And then what we can do is we can actually add a custom prompt for this mode as well. So I could say, please figure out a plan based on my input, create a markdown response of a to-do list based on what I asked for. Okay, and what we could do is we could hit done here, make sure my plan mode was enabled in case we have Mechanic Planner activated, and I could just say, please figure out how to improve the checkout user experience. What's going to happen is I'm going to send this off. It's not going to delete any code. It's not going to edit code. It's not going to generate code. It's only going to read my code. You can see it actually accessed one of the read search tools here. It actually grabbed the page and the cart sheet, which isn't every single thing that I wanted in here. So we could say, please search for more code that we use. I'm very explicitly not manually adding the context here. By the way, obviously you could manually add a context here, but the point is we're trying to get it to search for more stuff. And you can see it's kind of creating this markdown to-do list of all these different line items that perhaps we could possibly use, right? And so I could sit here in plan mode and know, okay, I can kind of talk to the AI in this mode about my code base, and I can know based on the configuration options I give it that it's not going to edit code. We can kind of come up for a plan, and then maybe at the very end of this, I like copy this response. You can see we even have a copy message button, which is really nice. So I could like copy this message. I could switch over to agent mode, new chat in agent mode, paste that in, and then I could say like, please follow the plan. Right, and then I could send that off to like agent mode and it would go write me stuff. So the point here isn't necessarily to make a planning mode, but the point is that if you have workflows that warrant creating a custom mode for, you can very easily kind of, and also very granularly create these modes with these custom prompts, with custom tools enabled. So you can kind of be very precise about how you actually want the agent to behave depending on what workflow you're sort of activating. And custom modes is Cursor's solution for addressing that problem. So kind of a cool thing to know about. Again, this is one of those things that I'm personally experimenting with more. So I don't have any like pre-made modes that I highly recommend. This is definitely going to be one of those things that's very workflow specific to you. So just kind of play around with those and know that that is something that's going to be new. And I imagine over time, Cursor is only going to allow additional configuration options there, which could be very, very useful for you in building kind of out these custom modes so that you can have sort of these different agents that do different work for you depending on the task at hand.